relaxing by myself today. Welcome to If These Walls Could Talk. I am your hostess with the mostest today, Wendy Stuart Kaplan. And I'm sure you are wondering where Tym Moss is. Well, I have such incredible news to share with all of you today. For anybody that is in Florida, Tym is in Lake Park, Florida. I have to use my copy here because I'm blind as a bat and can't see. Thursday, May 12th, Friday, May 13th, Saturday, May 14th. He is in a wonderful show called Little House on the Ferry. Show's been in development for a while. It has come to fruition, and you can buy tickets for it at the Black Box Center for the Arts. So please, if you'd like to do that, I know Tym would love to see your sweet faces out there in the audience if you're down in Florida. The storyline is hilarious, okay? I will just tell you, Little House on the Ferry, it takes place in Fire Island, and that's all I'm going to tell you. So I'm very, very excited to be here today. This weekend, we celebrated Tym Moss's, is it Moss's? Yeah, I guess it's a apostrophe. His 60th birthday with a kick butt show. We had comedian and MC Ithaca, J.R. Price with the new song Body Positive. People that came up and spoke on stage. We had La Di Da. We had Felipe Rose from the Village People. And oh my God, Sue, who's been on this show, a cabaret artist. I was totally and completely blown away by the whole thing. It was really quite amazing. And you know what? It was wonderful for Tym because he turned 60 last year during the pandemic. And he's like, it's my birthday and I can't even have a party. But it shows you, ladies and gentlemen, it is never too late to celebrate one's birthday. And like I reminded Tym, with the Walmart rollback, he didn't turn 60. He's actually really 50. So just hold on to that thought. Oh, and speaking of rollbacks, oh God, this is such a crazy transition I just did, but bear with me. Speaking of rollbacks, let's talk about classic film. I love the guest I'm having on today because he is an author. He is a film expert. He's very humble about all these things. He's an interviewer. And I have to tell you, he's 7 books. Who has 7 books out where like the detail in his books are amazing. His new book is called There Are No Small Parts, 100 Outstanding Film Performances with Screen Times of 100 minutes or less. Oh my gosh. All right. 10-minute performance. And I'm sorry, 10 minutes or less. He is the one, the only John DiLeo. Come on in. So, oh my God, we're off to a wonderful start. I completely botched up the title of the book. It's okay. Wait, let me put I have a monocle today. It seemed fitting to have a monocle.
It's a very old movie.
Right, because it's an old movie. This was the best I could do. Please don't judge me. Okay. It's 100 outstanding film performances with screen time of 10 minutes or less. And the name of the book is There Are No Small Parts. All right. And before we even get started, because I'm so impressed by the book, there it is. Where can people find it?
Oh, everywhere. Whether the big ones, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the independent bookstores, you name it.
Everybody's got it. And I have to share this with you. You can only get it as a book. And I love that. All right. Mm-hmm. It would be a sin to make this electronic. Absolutely.
Well, yes, that was the thinking, that it's so beautifully produced.
I have to say, I'm just going to turn to, classic pictures out of, I don't know how John, this had to take forever for him to do, and we're going to talk about that. But the pictures inside of it, the detailed writing, and I know this is really weird. Hold on. I love the way it smells. No, there's a lot of people that like to smell books, and this is right. Isn't that great? So you can order it, you can smell it, you can touch it, you can even taste it. Fantastic book. And speaking of small, boy, this writing was tiny for me, John.
Yeah.
I had
a lot of words.
Yeah, it's a lot of words.
It's in terms of it being a book and not an ebook. It's 100 gorgeous photographs. It's beautiful paper.
Right.
It's got its own bookmark.
Right.
I mean, it's just really.
Yeah, it did. Oh, I just.
But that's all my publisher. That part of it wasn't me.
And your publisher was
Marta Hallett of Folio and Glitterati Editions.
Right. And Marta is amazing. And I have to tell you, last night when I was going through the book, I did discover it had its own. Come on. When do you ever see this? No, this is like great. You know, I have a lot of authors on, but like I'm talking about like the actual product that we have here is really quite incredible. More than a book, an experience. So, John, film performances in 10 minutes or less?
Well, as you said, this is my 7th film book.
Right.
And my favorite period to write about is the classic era, which would, the studio system, say the 30s through into the 60s. But I like the books to continue on and maybe cover almost 100 years. So I'm not alienating people who like new movies and don't care about old movies.
Right.
So this one covers 1935 to 2019. So it's about 85 years.
So this encompasses like a bigger audience.
Almost the whole talking era, almost. And so the thing with the 10-minute performances was I've covered a lot of lead performances. I had a book on great underrated performances.
Right.
I did a book on the Tennessee Williams films and his key actors, again, dealing with mostly with the great roles. And there's always parts in movies that they're mostly not big enough to win a prize or get a nomination, but they're also integral to the movie, the impact of the movie, the plot. And sometimes they're a real jumping off point for people at the beginning of their careers or a kind of wonderful cameo at the end of a career. And it's just, I thought it'd be fun to collect a whole bunch of them from all different genres, all different decades, and just see what that would be. Of course, it's very subjective. If anybody else in the world wrote this book, there would be 100 different choices. So it's sort of as well, I think all my books are kind
John,
of my history of Hollywood.
It's your history. And can I tell you something? Nobody else would do this. No, the thing I love is the way you pay homage to, you're right, people that have pivotal performances that if you did not shine the light on them, it would go right over people's heads.
Yeah, and even with the under 10-minute cutoff that I used, even within that, there's a big difference between a 2-minute performance and a 9-minute performance.
Right.
So it's even within that, there's a lot of range. There's I don't know if it's maybe 10 that are, or maybe 15 in the 2 to 3 minute range, and some 5, 6, 7, and then 8, 9, 10, but they're all mixed up, but they're organized chronologically. But it's surprising how much you can do in 2 minutes.
No, listen, I remember, I'm more of a newer film person, although I got to tell you, you have turned me on to classics, and I'll tell you how. In Milford, Pennsylvania, besides interviewing incredible performers at the Black Bear Film Festival, John has been doing a film series every Sunday with classic films, and I go to them because he pulls things out of his film that nobody else would think to talk about. It is so interesting, and to your credit, you've taken somebody like me who only was a modern film person, and you've turned them onto classics. So kudos to you for doing that. The 10-minute thing or less, John brought up a good point. I remember Suzanne Summers. What film was she in that she became a star?
Oh, American Graffiti. She's the girl in the car.
Not even a minute.
Yeah, I don't think we got a good look at her.
No, but she became. But that was amazing to me. To John's point, she didn't even speak.
Yeah, she's not in the book.
She should, and as she should. I'm not judging Suzanne. I think she's fine.
But it was more of just as an image, as a woman of mystery, a golden girl that he catches his eye.
But that launched her.
Yes, it did.
That totally launched her career. I find this interesting. When I was going through your book, I said to myself, he actually had to sit and watch all of these films. I need to know, like, what did you have, like an egg timer going so you could the 10 minutes?
Yes, I mean
egg timer,
stopwatch.
You did have a stopwatch.
Well, my watch,
Okay.
But yes, if I thought it was a borderline thing, I did want to stick to what the title said it was.
So what if it was 11 minutes?
I didn't do it.
Wow.
No.
Sean, you're
harsh. The only way I'll admit, if it was like 10 and 10 seconds over, there's a way to shave 10 seconds off of anything, If like, the camera cut away, or I can barely see her, I'll take 5, but
that's poetic license, my dear, right?
Mostly it didn't come down to that. Of what got in there, maybe 1 or 2, it was so close, it was ridiculous not to. But if you got to 11, then you weren't in the ballpark, because the point was it was less than 10 minutes. Because if
Right.
it was 11 and 12, that's great too, but that's not
You
what
cut
this is.
them.
You're out. Yes. I cut them out.
Wow, John.
Cruel.
And you know, it absolutely cruel. And you know, when you think your readers, I would hate to think that there was a reader. Well, there may be one. There's always some jerk out there that is going to say, this was 1 minute over. There's always someone.
I haven't heard from that person yet,
Right.
but I know when I post things on Facebook, people often say, "Why didn't you put in
Why didn't
such
you?
and such?"
Right.
And the answer is usually because it's longer than 10 minutes. 'Cause
Right.
even I wouldn't, until I actually time things. Some things I remembered as being really short were actually like 12 to 15. So memory is a tricky thing because
Right.
it's about the impression it leaves with you, which is why you have to go back and check everything. You know?
Which fascinates me. Your memory. How the heck? I mean, you've been doing this for how many years?
My first book came out in 1999, so that's 23 years.
How do you
Yeah.
remember
It was
all
probably
the
25 because when I started the first one, 25 years.
what is the Casablanca? I think I saw you
Yes,
do the screening of that and
yeah.
everything. It seems when I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, this is not my first rodeo. But when I was talking to you, I'm like, John, I'm so excited. I've never seen this film. I've heard all about it.
Mhm.
It just goes in this part and out that part.
Mhm.
What is it is it your interest, your profound interest?
Yes, I think like anything, whether it's someone who remembers guys' baseball averages
Right,
on every
right, right.
card, it's not because they just sat down and were with a gun to their head forced to memorize something. If you love something, you absorb it easily, naturally, and you don't realize that you've memorized all these things or you know all these facts because you care, you're
Right.
interested, and it stays with you. And if you keep it up, it doesn't go away. And so with writing a book like this, yes, the individual 100 films I had to pay intense attention to, even if I'd seen them many times before, because I was coming at them from a different angle.
Right.
But all the movies in the essays about the performances, when I mentioned other movies those people were in, I've amassed, I think it's over 6,000 index cards that I wrote.
God.
So
wrote.
Every time I see a movie, I do a front and back of an index card with everything I think I'll ever want to hold on to. In a general way. If I need to write something specific about it, I'll have to go back and watch it again, like these 100 movies.
And I think
all the other ones, they're all my impressions from when I watched it.
Got it. And I love, you're writing them on index cards for every single person that says everything's got to be like put into a computer. You've got because you know what? You can, without going on one of these things and typing in, boom, you probably, how do you have them categorized?
Alphabetical.
And I'm sure you go in. No, you know what? Yeah. It's a wonderful way to do things. I always say, listen, we have to back up our electronics. Yeah. You've got a tangible you can touch.
I think the thing with that was I started the cards once I started writing the book. So I obviously watched a lot of movies before that, but once I was writing the books, I realized it would be very handy to have these,
right,
and have these, things I wrote right after I watched the movie, so I could trust myself. And I think I didn't know it was going to become what it did. So I was so far into it that the thought of them putting them into the computer was so exhausting. I guess I could have scanned them or whatever. But
no, but even that's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
No, right.
So it's just old fashioned going through the files, alphabetical.
Okay.
It could be 1928. I'm doing it the same way.
None of you can see my table here, but Tim Moss always makes fun of me. I have notes upon notes just so it kicks off something in my brain. This is my little system, and it's whatever works for you.
Yes.
Now, what is very interesting to me is, who is John DiLeo as a little kid? Were you parked in front of the TV watching those film classics then? Or
I kind of was. I had a family they all loved the movies.
They all loved the movies.
Both parents, grandparents loved the movies. And if we were home and whatever, after school or on the weekend, there was usually an old movie on at some point.
Playing, right?
And somebody in the house loved that movie, and I would be interested, and then it kind of took off from there.
Wow.
And then I wanted to perform. I acted in the school plays. I went to Ithaca College as a theater major.
Right, I knew that.
I came into what I'm doing now through wanting to perform, and it's sort of like that love of the arts. I think most people who are involved in the arts, they start it with the performance thing, like school plays or dance lessons or something, and then they find a place, because there's so many talented people. You think, well, maybe there's a place over here where I can still be creative. And I was 35 when I decided it was time to leave.
But I didn't know that, and and it's like, talk about a niche. I mean, there are film critics,
Yeah.
but to my knowledge, and believe me, I interview lots of people and I really do my homework. You're the only one. I mean, 7 books that
Well,
you're that focused on it is so impressive. And your passion, not only in your writing, but when you've interviewed, and we'll talk about that later, some of the people that you've interviewed, there's nobody doing that. So it really is an interesting departure from performing.
well, it was a natural progression for me, so it wasn't a painful ending one identity and trying to create
Right.
another.
It's the
It felt
identity.
like it was basically just another facet of the same thing. If you're reading one of my books, I'm still trying to make you laugh or
Yeah, you
touch
right.
you and do it. You know what I would be doing if I were playing a character. How do I make the audience feel something? So it never felt like I closed a door. It was just like a different part of the
It's
house.
a different it's a different door in a different part of the house.
Yeah.
But as a performer, right, you're the one that brings life to the character. In your writings, you're doing that. Okay. When
Well,
I
thank
read
you.
your things,
Yeah.
it makes those people very again, you have floated my boat. You
Yeah.
have. And you because you have brought that character to life.
Well, I think when I'm writing about actors, and I
Mhm.
think most of the time that is what I'm writing about in all the books, actors and what they're doing. That is that background of up to age 35 doing that. And so I think I really do trust myself when I'm writing
Yes.
about and separating what the actor's doing, what's in the script, what the text, if it was a play, trying to identify who's doing what,
Right.
and what the actor's part of it is and the illumination, the final element of it.
Right. How they
And
that's your
that's
acting
great
thing.
when you're writing about someone you love and what they're doing, and that probably nobody else could have done quite that way.
Right. In terms of like film progressions, because you started 1935
In this book, it starts with Elsa Lanchester in Bride of Frankenstein,
and Bright.
1935.
God, I remember that was like,
Yes.
I love that film.
Well,
You know, the more I talk to you, the more I realize I am connected to classics
see, you've
because
seen it.
Bride of Frankenstein is a little
Well,
kid. I love that.
The reason I started with that one is I wanted to start with a performance that everybody knew.
Right.
So you didn't pick it up and the first thing you thought was, I've never heard of the movie, I don't know who the actor is. Everyone knows who Bride of
Right.
Frankenstein is, even if they don't remember Elsa Lanchester. So it had to start with that kind of thing. Also, you would know what I meant. Oh, right, she's only in the last scene, so they get what the book was about.
Exactly.
Actually, she plays two roles. She plays Mary Shelley in the prologue. So she's a 3-minute
So she's in
performance
the beginning,
and a 4-minute, and even
beginning and
2, it
end.
adds up to 7.
I was going to say that's allowed, right? You're allowed
Yes.
to do
I think
right.
she's the only
So-
one that does that.
right.
But yes, it's yeah.
So she was in the beginning and
Yes.
then in the
The
end.
first scene and the last scene. Yeah.
Wow, huh?
Yeah.
That's it. And but here you are. You did shine the light on her and
love
make
her.
us. You
Yes.
love her. What was it for you? And I think I'm going to be asking you this a lot. What was so pivotal about her performance?
Well, in terms of The Bride, which is of course of the 2 performances, the one that got all the attention, and it's the title role. It's so wildly inventive. We're so used to it because the image with the lightning bolt in the hair, and it's been spoofed.
We
and
love
everything.
that, right?
But it's such an iconic
Frankenstein,
image,
right?
and to think of them on the set creating the sound she was going to make, the sort of bird-like movements, and it's really bold because they could have fallen flat on their faces, the director and the whole thing.
Right.
But it's so outrageous and brilliant at the same time, and
brilliant.
funny and scary. It's just like
Right.
I'm in awe of it, and she's literally in it that part of it for 4 minutes.
Right. And
Yeah.
and obviously made a lasting impression on you and just about anyone else who had seen her
Sure.
performance in that. I even remembered.
See?
there you go. And
See.
if I remember, you have obviously your favorites in these 10 minutes. Let's talk about who some of your favorites are that you feel their 10 minutes of fame, right? What Andy Warhol said, everyone was going to have 15 seconds
15
of fame.
minutes.
Right. John DiLeo says
I can-
10 minutes. You get more bang for your buck with this guy. That's all I'm saying. And Andy, okay.
Well,
Who
I
are some
think
of your favorites?
There are a lot of famous ones in it, particularly the more recent ones where people know the actor and they'll remember the movie. But for me and what I do, it was most fun to write about lesser known people, because you feel like, who in 2022 is writing about this person
Right.
anywhere at all? And I felt like I was, in my way, giving them a gift
Well,
to say,
empowering.
to say,
right.
I want the world to know what you did. I'm thinking of a wonderful guy named John Ray in Frank Capra's Mr. Deeds Goes to Town.
Okay,
Wonderful
everyone
movie.
knows Mr.
Yes.
Deeds.
Well, he plays the farmer who bursts into the mansion and is sort of like this personification of the Depression that crashes into this movie,
Right.
and changes the plot in his 4.5 minutes. And there's a brilliant actress named Gladys George who played a lot of tough cookies in the 30s and 40s.
I love that expression,
Yeah.
tough cookie.
And she's in a movie called The Hard Way, which is like a version of Gypsy before there was Gypsy, but it's sisters rather than mother and daughter.
Got it.
And she's a downward spiraling star. And it's like her last.
That's a common theme, by the way.
It's her last 7 minutes before she's walks out of a show, fired, drunk. And it's like a mini movie in this movie, The Hard Way, 1943. And it's spectacular. And it's sort of like if the movie were 2 hours, there's nothing more she could give me that she didn't already give me in 7.5 minutes.
Amazing.
So people like that. But of course, they're, as I said, they're famous people. Marilyn Monroe, Marlene Dietrich, Alec Baldwin. There's a lot of famous people in the book. But for me, I think I got particular pleasure about writing about someone that I thought, wow, I can't remember the last time this person was mentioned or so.
But you brought out something that if we weren't having this conversation, I would never think about, that their 10 minutes changed the plot.
Yes.
That's a whole other thing that I don't think
yes.
most of us would think of when we
Yes.
watch a film.
Right.
That
you can be a pivotal
Right.
character in a few minutes. And yes, it's well written because it has to be able to pivot the whole story, but it also takes somebody very special in the part.
Right.
Another thing was like to take very famous movies like It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes, everyone knows that film.
So if I told you H.B. Warner was the guy I picked to be in the book, not everyone will know. He's the old druggist, Mr. Gower, and he's in it for about 4 minutes as well. I can't remember exactly, but he's in the beginning when George
Right.
is a little boy and has that scene where he slaps him around because he just got notice that his son died from influenza, and then he's in the fantasy, completely homeless and horrible,
Right.
and it's a harrowing couple of minutes, and some of the darkest stuff in that movie is in his scenes.
Right.
And he had been in a silent star, and he had a big career, but even people who love the film couldn't tell you his name.
Right.
I assume, but not everybody.
Right. Not every, but that's why you're here today, John, on this show to tell us about people that we wouldn't even know about really if it weren't for you putting together the book that you did. Do you feel it's like a natural progression? Your very first book, I have all your books here.
Yeah.
Your very first book, and you thought you knew classic movies.
That was a quiz book. So yes, the first one where I didn't even know if I could really write, I basically wrote clever little introductions to 200 quizzes. That was what the book was. And because it got published and people seemed to like it, it gave me the confidence. Well, I think I could actually write, short pieces. And then the next one was like, I think I could write long pieces, or I think I could do sort of major profiles of people. So each book has sort of challenged.
It's been a progression for you, but I'm going to stop you right there. You didn't think it. It's amazing to me because one of the things about you that stands out for me, you're so damn humble. You really are, and this was your first. There's people writing garbage out there that think they are gods. Only I'm sure you've seen them, and it's like, why did you even think you could write a book? And of course, Amazon has made it possible for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to write a book. You were a little tepid. Well, let me just try this.
I guess because when I did the
humbling.
first book, I was still thinking I'm just an actor kind of on the way out, and I'm just throwing darts at boards to see what will stick. Like maybe this.
I call it spaghetti on the wall.
That's good too. Maybe this will be the thing. Right. And then I realized, I as I've said before to people, that it wasn't like I was in English class, some student where the teacher was coming up to me and saying, you have a writing gift, you should be doing this. Never, never, never. I think I came at it from the opposite way, which was I had so much I wanted to say, so I had to get good at saying it, and I would get better and better at saying it.
Okay, that's a quote. That is a quote. I had so much I had to say. I had to get really good at saying it because, John, you just said a bunch of things here for people at home that are listening that feel they have that it's ready to burst out of them. Go for it. You did it.
Well, I can see when I look at my 7 books, not that I'm at home every night looking at all 7 books, but I can see how much better I've gotten with each one. For me, I like when I look at the one that just came out,
Yeah.
I still feel very, very pleased with every sentence. When I look back 20 years, I can say, oh, I bet I could have done that a little better. But
Well, like this one, for instance, okay, I've got Boris Karloff, and that's Lucille Ball, and this one, right? From the pictures can everybody see how tiny this print is? Okay, I have my special monocle to read John's book, but all kidding aside, this is a lot of detail and a lot of research, and the writing is wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, so you want to talk about somebody evolving? You really are an inspiration for people, not only for people that are turned on by something, that think they have something to say, but you're right. You were in a different career in the arts, but not so different.
Right.
And you just took it upon yourself. Open up that other door. Don't be afraid. Walk through. Your first one, as you said, was questions, and you thought you knew classic movies. That would be a very good book for me just getting started.
It's very hard, though. That's the thing.
It's hard. I'm going to be judged.
Yeah, no, it was.
It is.
It was, the idea behind that book was to test the people who say, I know everything about old movies. So it was sort of like the test of all tests, the quiz book of all quiz books.
Okay, but I know nothing. So for someone
it's
like,
not for you.
Okay,
for you.
Moving right along here, 100 great film performances you should remember, but probably don't. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I was saying about how I was writing about lead performances.
Right.
Which is the new book is closest to that one in format.
I was going to say in format.
It's 100. Right. They might not all be well known. The essays are roughly about the same size, but the focus is different because instead of stars and star parts, we're dealing with these miniatures.
Right. But you're giving them, you're giving them a platform. No one else has done that. You're absolutely giving them a platform. All right. Screensavers, 40 remarkable movies awaiting rediscovery.
So that was one where I didn't come at it from the actor's point of view. That was a book about the different genres. So I wrote about 5 great musicals that I loved that I didn't think got enough attention, 5 great war movies, 5 great fantasy horror, 5 great Westerns. And that spanned the decades. That went up to 2000 and started in the silent era. So that was one where the focus wasn't on the actors. It was more of the progression of genres and how they operate.
And you know what? If you hadn't said it, that's something I never even thought about. That from each time period, I guess it makes sense, right? War movies were popular during the war,
and the different wars as movies go on. Like
right.
In the 30s, they were making
like Casablanca.
Right.
I didn't realize the impact, and I found, oh my God, here I go. I've been woke. When I was watching Casablanca, there were things about that film that completely related to now and where we were.
Yeah.
What's going on in the Ukraine.
Well, one thing about the great old movies is that they continue to speak to us.
Thank you.
And not just entertaining, because of course Casablanca is very entertaining. It's romantic. It's exotic. It's obviously filmed in very fake sets that you want to live in. It's a beautiful world.
They didn't feel fake to me at all. They looked like,
it was all Hollywood.
I loved it.
But they're also like the issues that Rick, played by Bogart, the stuff he's dealing with is stuff people deal with all the time.
Right.
Self and bigger causes and all the and it never stopped speaking, even though it was made during the war, about the war,
never
and
stopped
essentially
speaking.
Part of the machine to keep morale high during the war. It has never stopped speaking to people, and that's mostly what the great ones do, which was why I love showing the old movies. I never really show anything that I would think had no value. I was like, you're going to be surprised how moved you're going to be or how much you're going to laugh,
right?
Even though this movie's 85 years old, or
but you're talking now about common threads, laughter, okay, exactly. History.
Yeah,
don't we say history repeats itself?
Yeah. And I mean, of course, the styles change, and there's often little moments where you think, well, that's, we don't think like that anymore and stuff. But, obviously, the older these movies get, that's going to come up more and more, that like these little things. But, I try to get past things that if there's so much value, there's certain things you just have to say, hey, it's 90 years old.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But everything old is new again. I hate using a cliche like that, but You could, for all
Yeah.
intents and purposes,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, I would hope we're all just people, right? We
Yeah.
haven't morphed into avatars yet.
Yeah. Well, like I showed, it happened one night. Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. It's called sort of the granddaddy of romantic comedies from 1934. I showed it a few weeks ago, and people were loving it. And you think it's still maybe the best romantic comedy ever because they've all imitated it. And what we still love about them when we see a good one, it's all there in that movie. So, it's.
Do you think a film like Harry Met Sally
that's
pulls a little from
yes,
it? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything where the two main people are sort of at odds for most of the movie,
Right.
and like we have to wait for them to get to where we know they're going to get to.
Right, exactly. All right, people that you've interviewed completely fascinates me. I've seen you do your interviews. Tell me about some of your interviews that you've had.
Well, I lucked out when I moved to Milford that there was a Black Bear Film Festival that I could walk to.
Right.
I didn't know that.
And by the way, that's in October. When is that this year? Plug for Black Bear Film Festival
it's usually the middle of October, usually the weekend after Columbus Day.
Yes.
And the festival was new when I got there. I think it was the second year. And at some point, they had access to an old-time star, Farley Granger, and they thought of me because they got him, but they weren't sure what to do with him after he agreed to come.
Right.
And somebody knew me, I guess, on the board, and they said, there's that guy in town.
That odd guy in town. He's a film expert.
He writes books about this stuff.
Yeah,
I guess the second one had been out by then. And so I did get to interview Farley Granger before we screened Strangers on a Train on the big screen. And that was the first of about 10 on-stage interviews, either before their movie or after their movie, usually whatever they wanted to do.
People love, by the way, the Q&As. When I go to film festivals, my thing is, yes, I watch the film, but I always stay for the Q&A because that's the backstory.
Well, also, it's so special when and these were old stars.
Right.
I interviewed people like Jane Powell and Tab Hunter,
Arlene Dahl,
Keir DeLay. So many of these people were, great memories for the audience.
Right.
And if the audience was, say, 60-ish, 70-ish, these were people they loved as teenagers or kids, and they couldn't believe they were in this town, in our town.
In Milford, Pennsylvania, where I go on the weekend.
And then when I would be asking them questions, and they would be talking about intimate details of their career and their lives, and it was so intimate that people felt they were in on something special and something that was just this one time. And usually the stars, I think, felt the same way. They could feel the love. They could feel how welcome the town made them. And so I have some, amazing memories. The most sort of substantial thing that came out of it was just a lucky thing. Was actually which was the last one of the more recent ones. Was Jane Alexander.
She passed.
No,
she didn't. Who's the one that passed? There was somebody.
Jane Powell passed.
It was Jane Powell that passed.
Other Jane.
It was the other Jane that recently passed. Right. Jane Alexander, of course, was 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
And she and I really hit it off as friends. Like she was there a couple of days, and we kept up. We kept up an email, and she was in a show in New York, and I went to see her, and I came backstage, and anyway, when I was starting this book with the under 10-minute performances, an obvious one was Jane Alexander and All the President's Men from 1976. She's the bookkeeper. She doesn't have a name, but she's in it for about 8.5 minutes. So I knew I was going to include her, and I wrote to her and said, I'm doing this book. You're going to be in it. When I'm done with it, can I send it to you? Maybe if you like it, you'll give me a quote. She said, absolutely, send it to me. She was good on her word. She read it real fast. I mean, just when she said, I'll have it done by this date, and she said, I have a quote for you. It's slapped on the back of the book, and it's the gift that keeps on giving.
And here is the quote.
Well, we both are. Wait, my glasses are over here. You don't have to do the whole thing.
Oh, it's okay. I want to. The quote is.
Well, it's long, but I'll give you the.
You can read it.
No.
That's not too long. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. John DiLeo takes us on a captivating waltz through movie history by focusing on actors in brief roles who made a big impact. Many of the 100 movies are well-known classics, others obscure, but DiLeo makes you want to see them all and revisit the under 10-minute performances he writes about so compellingly. I am delighted to be included for my 8 minutes on screen.
Yay, Jane Alexander!
Bookkeeper and All the President's Men. and confessed to having never been so thoroughly dissected in a park. that's funny.
No, okay.
She's a sweet lady.
She's amazing.
Talk about inspiring.
She
Oh
is
my God.
inspiring, but you know what?
So many ways.
I love her choice of words, dissected. I was trying to think of what you did, John, and I'm using words like detail, intricacy, dissect. You not only dissect the film, you dissect the role. It is this is a special gift. You said something earlier about, writing, and you weren't in school considered a gifted writer. This is my case in point. Your gift is your ability to actually analyze and dissect. That is a critical thinker.
Well, I think what a lot of talent in any kind of form is about concentration. If you can concentrate on something and give it the attention it needs and not let go of it till it's finished, whatever that means, but until your satisfaction. And I think a lot of what I do, I think I do have those OCD tendencies.
It is I was going to say it's definitely a little OCD, but it's a good use of it.
I think it's a good use of it where you then have to know when it's time to let go of whatever you're concentrating on, but to give it that amount of, whether it's acting, the level of concentration is what absorbs the audience because they see you are somewhere. Right. And so with anything anybody does, concentration makes a difference.
Well, I think we're going to use this term interchangeably, which I call it focus.
Yeah,
fine-tuned focus. And that is a gift because as I've gone on in years, what I've realized is I will sometimes see things that nobody else sees. That can be a source of frustration in a conversation with someone or expectations of someone. You want to just take and shake them and say, why are you not seeing this? Certainly with film, it's easier because you're the only person, looking at the thing. Right. When you're talking amongst a group of friends, I'm sure you also go through this sometimes that you've seen something that nobody else sees. So you have to kind of zip your lip because they don't see it.
You've also hit on the biggest difference between acting and writing was going from something you do with a group, a community of people pulling together to make something happen, to being the guy or woman alone in a room doing what you do and not having anyone get involved till way late in the process.
Well, yeah.
And then it's then it's different. Then it's like, whoa, it used to be just whatever I wanted all the time.
Right. Well, there is something to be said for being a writer for that reason. It's your perception, your focus, it's your rodeo.
Yeah.
However, then we get into things like editors. So let's talk about that. I'm curious in your process how that works for you. How do they edit somebody like you?
They don't.
They can't edit him. You are uneditable. No, because
I don't remember anyone saying they were fact checking because that would have made me go, "Oh, really? What are you going to do?"
Yeah, really.
I didn't do?
Right. That would go on for decades.
More of like the copy editor, where you, if they have questions about word choice or that kind of stuff.
Right, but I'm talking about when people will submit a book, and the content, and the editor might want things changed or what. You're untouchable. No one can touch you.
Thank you.
They won't go near John with a 10-foot pole.
This one is pretty close to what I mean. Yeah, it's to what I sent in originally. I mean, there are a couple of little, like I said, copy edit things, but nothing where structural that's the one thing too. The way I do these books, I set up what the essay form is going to be. Like, this is 100 essays. They're all 3 pages long. So it's kind of built in. No one's going to come in and say, now, if you could just move all this, it's already formatted.
Your structure is formatted. So
it's almost like you're the director who's edited the movie before you show it to the producer. Right. It's already exists. Like, you can't really do too much if you're going to do the book.
Right.
So all of them have been like that, where they're chaptered in a way that it's consistent. And so it's not like a novel where you think this part is unnecessary.
Exactly, where things can be
entertained or anything like that. So that's why there's no writer's block either. Because if I don't want to write about that, I just don't write about that. So
and it just occurred to me, there's another hat you're wearing. You're a director. You are the director of all of these.
Well, I do, like I said about the formats, I do always have a visual of the book before I start it so I can understand what I think I'm doing. Things can change, but at
Right.
least you have an outline in your head of this is what it's going to look like. So now I'm just putting the pieces in place because I write the essays out of order and I just put them and stack them
Right.
chronologically as they happen. So, yeah, whatever.
So I want to talk more about your interviews because there have been 10 at the Black Bear Film
Okay.
Festival. I think I've seen 9 of them. I think I missed Farley Granger. Do you remember
That
what
was-
year that was?
That was 2005. That was the first one.
No, I think I did see that one, but I wasn't familiar with the film, so maybe I shut it down in my head.
Yeah.
Okay. March Champion.
March Champion was great.
Dancer.
Yes, great dancer with her husband at the time, Gower Champion.
Right.
MGM musicals, and then she was a choreographer, and just she got past 100.
She was how old when she came to
She
the
was,
Black
I think,
Bear?
91, and she
Okay.
I think lived to be
I have to share this with the audience. Her film that we showed was
she brought a documentary short called Keep Dancing
right.
about life in your 90s.
Right.
That, life takes away many things by that point, but gives you other things. And it was to take advantage of, if you were in good enough health, to savor this gift of being past 90, which included going to the dance studio every day with her partner, Donald Sadler.
Right.
And they would have these sessions. I mean, they weren't leaping off the walls, but they were doing what they had done of their lives.
We're waiting for John to do the interview. I believe that year it was in the high school.
Yes.
And standing next to me, I hadn't walked into the theater yet. Standing next to me outside the theater was March Champion. Okay. I've never seen anything like this. Her leg is going up over her head. This woman is in her 90s. She's leaning against, she put me to shame. I couldn't believe her flexibility, her focus. I could not believe what I was seeing.
Yes.
And then she went on and she did her interview with you. I got to tell you, John, that was like, and that's why I'm asking you about the individual people.
Yeah.
My God, these people are an inspiration.
And the discipline, that's
the
thing.
The discipline,
that
right.
never left her. And she was, like I said, just about all these people have been inspiring, because even if their career was long behind them and they assumed that most people wouldn't know who they were anymore, they were all very modest about that. We'd go somewhere, some of them would say, they're not going to know who I am.
Right.
They don't know. That's all so far away. But they could call it up, like I said, on stage to talk about it. And yet they weren't none of them seemed to have the baggage of, if only I was still, none of that Norma Desmond stuff.
Well, I love it. They
all kind of put it, they had all been survivors in the business and understood it, how it operated, good times, bad times, or the past, the present, all that stuff. They were all inspiring in different ways of just about aging.
But I love that you're saying that, okay, because we live, and I'm going to get into the Netflix thing with you. We live in such a youth-oriented society, right? And we talk about this all the time on the show. In other cultures, they will give such respect to the elders and go to them for advice, because there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
You just called out the fact that these people are inspirational. Why are they inspirational? They're not sitting and lamenting about when they started a movie. They have reinvented, moved on, which means they didn't kick their film career to the curb, but they are doing other things, which is so important. We had on this show Sissy Kathy Garver from Family Affair. Oh my God. I love that she was on here. Everything that she's doing. This woman has a pot on her stove and another one and another one and another one. And I'm glad she came on here to talk about it, because I think that that's a really important thing. It's how we look at our careers, how we look at ourselves, how we look at how we're moving on in life. As I tell people all the time, this girl not hanging up her toe shoes anytime soon. And none of us should, unless you become so compromised that you can't do your thing. But your thing, like your thing that you do, John, or the thing that any of us do as creative people, my God, it's such an incredible thing to donate to society.
And what was fun with, particularly I remember with Jane Powell and Tab Hunter, was that their lives weren't movie star glamorous at the moment, but it was, they knew they had this wonderful gift
Oh my
that
God,
if they
Tab
could
Hunter.
come to a festival, they had this thing that they could, I wouldn't even say turn on, because it wasn't so, it was more organic than that. They just knew that they could make people happy
Right.
by virtue of stuff that happened a long time ago that was still them,
Right.
what they had done. And then they could go back to their lives. But if they still had the capacity to bring that joy.
Because you know what? Great is great. Tab Hunter. I have a T-shirt with Tab Hunter on it that I sleep in. I tell him when he had passed away, and I was still telling people I'm sleeping with Tab Hunter. But that was everything, because he was such a matinee idol, Tab Hunter.
Yes.
And to get him in the latter part of his life,
he was so nice.
He was so nice, right? And such a gentleman. But it's also like their stories.
Yeah. Actually, he after the interview, we were at the bar hanging out, a bunch of us, and my previous book had just come out, and I had given it to him as a gift. It had just come out as a thank you for the whole thing and all that. And I said, we got to take a couple of pictures with me. So I'm posed with Tab. And he goes, John, wait. You got to get the book in the picture.
Good. That's what I would have told you.
He's like, what? You know, it'd be good for you. It was like,
I love that.
Like so sweet.
Right. So well, it was giving. It was so giving. Sweet. And the name of that book was
10 Movies at a Time.
Okay. And people can get that on Amazon. Yes. Okay. Yes. We always want to name the titles. 7 books, John. That's a lot of books. You are an expert, and I am going to shine that light on you. Let's talk about Lorna Luft, who I've actually got to meet. Lorna was great.
That was fun because her book had just come out about A Star Is Born, the one starring her mother, Judy Garland, produced by her father, Sid Luft. So she was doing events for that, and she came to Black Bear. And actually, I had put together a bunch of clips of the different Star Is Borns and highlights from her mother's movie, because her mother's movie is so long, we couldn't have done an interview for an hour and a 3-hour movie.
Exactly.
So it worked out really well. And then she had a book signing that was very successful.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was like lines.
The line was it was incredible.
Yeah, they sold, I think, every copy that was there. But she was a lot of fun. And we, of course, talking, Judy Garland, it's like Marilyn Monroe, these figures that are beyond icons. It's like they almost don't seem like they're real anymore. So to be sitting there with her daughter and you can ask her, like, I want to ask you, I remember thing was, she lost the Oscar. Everyone knows she lost the Oscar.
She lost
Star Is Born. She was hooked up with the TV stuff because she had just delivered her son, and she lost. But she was nominated again for Judgment at Nuremberg.
Right.
And I've never seen a photo or anything. Did she go? And so she was able to tell me they were all dressed up. They were ready to go to the Oscars, and she thought she was going to lose, so she was hesitant. And Lorna's brother said, I don't think I feel well. Oh, Joey's not feeling well. We're not going. She just wanted one little excuse
I don't even know this story.
To come.
Right.
And that was the kind of thing of like, if I weren't sitting across from her,
you would have never known
getting it from the horse's mouth. You know. She said, yeah, we were ready to go, but she knew she was going to lose, and she did. But again,
there she was. You got to interview her.
Yeah, it was really good. And then I saw her in concert.
I went to that concert.
Oh, in Milford, but I saw her here, and so it's just nice.
And it's not only just nice because we hear of these people, Judy Garland, Lorna Luft is not only, I loved, she gave a Christmas concert, and then she did an interview after, and it was before our theater in Milford was renovated.
Yes,
there was Lorna Luft on stage in a parka and gloves, but the consummate professional doing her interview looking like that. I mean, and giving us, this is another thing, they give us bits and pieces of themselves that say, hey, I'm very real. The issue I have with now is the non-reality, the society that we are living in with these reality shows. These people aren't real. They're not movie stars either. The Real Housewives, the Kardashians, I can go right through and name any of the reality shows. But John, how did this come to be when the people we're talking about, they really are stars? Why would people look up to the fantasies that are sold to them on these quote unquote reality shows when we had real stars and we continue to have real stars?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it was always a star driven enterprise, the movies. And then it's been going in the 21st century. We've been going away from it being a star-driven
right.
Art form. You think of even as recently as the 90s, it was Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts and George Clooney, and
yeah.
And then maybe you can go, maybe Jennifer Lawrence maybe would be the last.
She just squeaked in.
The last
Jen
person.
just squeaked in under the door.
But now it seems like with the Marvel movies and whatever else, it's character driven, where no one even cares who's in the costume of the superhero.
But
it's
character driven.
Spider-Man's the star. Nobody cares who's.
So you would say that maybe movies have evolved to that
in a bad way.
Bad way.
And I think with reality TV, initially it was a much cheaper way to make television than paying excellent writers, excellent actors, and creating stars for 15 minutes. So I think a lot of it was economics, and there's just, there is a lot of great television now. We are in some kind of golden age of television.
Yes.
But most of the great writers are writing for television drama and not for the movies.
And not for the movies.
It's just, and it's not it's not the writer's fault. It's not the actor's fault. It's just what they make.
I think
and there's still really good movies every year, just not as many as there used to be.
But okay, here's the thing, and we have a bunch of comments which I want to get to. But let me talk about the movies.
Yeah,
there's tons of them now. Before we started, I was telling you, like Netflix, right? Those are very formula oriented. I tend to see the same actors popping up in these quote unquote Netflix movies. Many things to me have become a factory right now where like in your books, you're highlighting individual movies. I think the system is just different.
I think too, also, there was always formulas. There was always the sort of routine dramas, but you didn't watch them all like night after night because it wasn't in your house where you could watch them tonight.
Good point.
And the next night.
That's a good point.
2 years later, they'd remake the movie with a different cast, different names, set it in a different place, and it would seem familiar, but you kind of went with it. And now, like you said, if they're doing these formulas, whether it's the holiday movies, which are very formula, and if they're producing 20 at a stretch, and then you can watch them all over and over, it becomes so obvious how calculated it is.
It is unbelievably calculated. I watch them because, when the pandemic hit, myself and most of my actor friends, it came to a crashing halt.
Right.
Ironically enough, Netflix seemed to find all the COVID loopholes to not only get around that. And when I look at the dates when these movies were made, they were cranking out films. Yeah. And if you watch different movies, it's like a group. Maybe in that group are 100 actors, but it's a lot of the same people that were working during that time.
Yeah. The problem too is I think COVID's going to have a further negative impact on the movies, where even people who are still going to the movies like me, there are fewer of us now from the 2 years. So even something as well received and as marvelous as the West Side Story remake didn't get the audience it should have because that audience wasn't going out to the movies. So what also is happening, more and more of those people are now used to not having to go out, and they're probably
good
even
point.
When it's all over, they're done with that.
No, you're right.
And
get your giant screen.
And it's just about teenagers going to see Superman, and that's what the theaters are going to be. Except me showing now Voyager and Milford this weekend at 4:00. But and that's another wonderful thing about showing old movies in the theater is that, if you're home and you're flipping on your Turner Classic Movies and you're come in the middle and you loved something, there's a whole part of it you never saw. But if you pay it for a ticket and sit there, it starts and you don't get up till it ends, you saw the whole movie and you saw more details because of the size of the screen. And so when you see Casablanca that way, it's not like just stumbling on it.
It was, for me, it was like seeing it for the first time in those backgrounds you talked about. Oh my God, I ate them up. Oh, so the comments. All right, there we go. Timothy Moreland has tuned in. Thank you so much, Timothy, one of our friends. Sue Stutzman, thank you so much. Teresa Sabin. Now it comes out. Wendy doesn't even know how to scroll these things. Tim Moss, I'm lost without you. let me see who else is on here. There are other people, but if you look at Tim Moss on Facebook Live on his page, there will be comments there. And there will, of course, be comments on our YouTube page as well. I am technically broken, but what I lack in technical non-expertise, I make up for in good interviews. So there we go. And having, of course, great guests. John, let's talk about independent film. And it's a bit of an elephant in the room, and I'll tell you why. Because I know you concentrate on the classic blockbusters, indie films have largely taken over. And, you know, we keep referencing the Black Bear Film Festival in Milford, Pennsylvania, which we certainly, our films there are all independent films. I'm an independent documentary filmmaker. How do you think the impact of these indie films is going to affect those big budget films, or will it not? I want your opinion on that.
Well, it's a complicated issue. One of the things I remember the impact of independent film as someone who lived in New York in the 90s and up till 2012 was that the independent American independent film knocked out a lot of the opportunities for foreign language films to play in New York.
Oh, that's
when I was like when I moved here in the 80s, there was always the new big Italian movie, the new big Japanese film, or French film.
The Angelica would always carry
that. Almost by the time I left New York, it was almost impossible to see more than one or two, whatever the one or two most highly touted foreign films were, and nothing else. There were all these people you'd hear about that the films were never here. And so, again, I'm not really blaming anybody. I'm just saying that did happen because of that, because they were getting those slots. And independent films, like everything else, there are great ones and there are really bad ones. So just because they're independent and are made with the right impulses doesn't mean they're good.
Right impulses, low budget.
Well, and just because a Hollywood movie has a lot of movie stars doesn't make it automatically suspect.
Right.
You know? So it's a tricky time. So I've noticed that in terms of the accessibility of Italian and French films, which were, when I moved here, were everywhere.
Exactly.
It felt like it. I don't know. It's sort of as far from the superhero movies as you can get. So I think independent film will do well on like Netflix when those movies come to, because they're not as much about the production values on the big screen.
Exactly.
And so they probably play. And even with the Oscars, I saw almost all the nominees except for West Side Story at home.
Yeah.
And
same.
Most of them weren't, I guess, big movies that you felt like, oh, I should have seen this in a theater for maximum impact, the way it was true of West Side Story. So I don't really know where it's all going.
You know, from this conversation, this is what I've gotten. I'm so happy you do what you do, because I don't know going forward with the way things, we are in a time of transition. Yeah. That's what I'm getting. Every single thing that you said, and how films are brought to us. You're right. I saw every single film also, because we get them from the Directors Guild and Screen Actors Guild. Yeah. I watched every single one, and I watched them on my TV, my 42-inch screen. Right. And I'm sure that's how lots of people are. And because of streaming and Netflix, a plus side, you're going to get to see a lot more stuff. Well, both good and bad.
The other thing about, movies are new for a very few minutes, really. Movies are old movies for most of their lives. You're only new for a year, and then the Oscars are over, and then you're an old movie. So
it's like being born. Like from the time you're a year old, you're aging. Oh my God, it's so depressing.
But what's interesting in terms of like what I do is like when you look back at the 30s, I don't know that they had a sense of what was going to be a classic, because it's always so easy to underappreciate things that are popular and stuff. So we talk much more about Bride of Frankenstein and Fred and Ginger and Top Hat than we do about Paul Muni and the life of Emile Zola. Which, you know what I'm saying? What's considered prestigious and serious can change. And so that's often an interesting thing. Like, what are we in right now that we're overlooking as being something more than it is, because it's easy to dismiss? And what other thing that we're touting highly, we're going to look at and think it was kind of pretentious.
Right.
And there wasn't really much underneath it, but it was a good subject for the moment. That's what I find interesting about the Oscars. Even when they blow it completely, they're good markers of what meant something at that
time.
moment.
Yeah.
And what the industry thought, I want this to be the movie this year that says what we were about.
Right.
And it's sometimes they pick a good one, sometimes they don't, but it's always reflects who they liked, what was sort of in the zeitgeist, or whatever you want to call it. And that's why I'm fascinated by them. And they're, of course, fun to argue with, but,
Well, to me, the only downside with the Oscars, because I watch them, I'm fascinated by film as you are. The Oscars, to me, is very bandwagon bitch. It's a political aspect of it, where I think that there can be incredible films out there that get overlooked, and that, I'm going to say it. I don't like, this is just my opinion. I'm sure lots of people loved Licorice Pizza. I just couldn't. Well, I'm going to say I couldn't get into it, no matter how hard I tried. And a film like that, to me, 10 years ago, would have been like an indie film that somebody I knew made coming out of film school.
It was also 45 minutes too long. But
right, and it wasn't. But for those of you who liked it, please don't write a nasty comment to me on Facebook. For those of you who liked it, I think we're bringing up something here. Different strokes for different folks, right? Film is about people's taste.
In terms of the Oscars, it's always been, tainted from the beginning.
Right.
When it was really just about
the tainted Oscars.
Yes, it always has been.
Right.
Studios used to say, vote for this guy because that movie needs to make money, and we spent a lot on it. So it's never, but what award is not tainted by other things, politics or whatever, personality. And they're just, like I said, they're mostly fun to argue with, and mostly fun for you to decide how you feel about something in reflection to what somebody else said was the best. Whether you want to agree with it or disagree with it, it's a good sounding board.
I found out I'm a good picker. Both at the Oscars and the SAG Awards, I was only wrong like 2 times.
All right.
Yeah, I know. I even impressed myself. John, you are a delight. What do you want to tell people? Oh my God, thank you so much. We'll have a drink at the bar. Going forward,
we're good friends.
Yes, we are good friends. Well, yeah, but even if John weren't, no, I didn't know John that well.
Well, I mean,
we got to know each other.
I mean, this amazing chemistry didn't just happen like that. I've known you.
No, but you know what? With what you do, and because I have no filter, I will ask anybody anything. And the people that Tim and I have on the show, we admire what they do because they inspire, and really that is admire, inspire, and that's what If These Walls Could Talk is about. What do you want people to know about you going forward? What's coming up?
I've got a couple of things. One thing that's exciting, I'm going to be one of the authors at the East Hampton Library Authors Night on August 13th. I think tickets go on sale in June.
Wow.
But they've announced who the slate of authors, and we'll all be there signing books under a tent. And that'll be very exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Under a tent, I like that.
Yes. And I've got a couple other things. I'm supposed to have events. I don't have dates for yet, so I can't really talk about them. But there's stuff in the irons in the fire.
There irons in the fire. That's what we want to hear. And how can people find out more about you? Where do they have to go?
My website's johndileo.com, JOHNDILEO.
Easy.
Follow me on Instagram. I post every day, JOHN.DILEO.12.
Don't forget the dots.
And I'm there. I have a fan page on Facebook and a regular page. I'm on Twitter at John DiLeo. I guess I'm doing everything right. I'm not on TikTok. I feel I'm too old.
It's just you could be, but it is one. That's my breaking point. It's one thing too many.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I spend between promoting the things I'm in, promoting the people I interview, promoting, and I have a wonderful PR person, World Star Media. Even with all that, I'm on social media 3 hours a day. Do you realize how pathetic that is? Well, an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half at night. And it's just, it is what it is. It's what we got to do, as we say. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. This is a really, really great time. I'm sure you all learned so much. I always learn more every time I talk to this guy. See you all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.